glad that you guys came out today to celebrate with us the hard work that our students have been doing this semester with the community. And I also want to thank all of our community partners, some of whom couldn't be here because they were traveling from Austin and had lots of other things going on. But we have reached out, Mr. Willits and I, to a broad array of individuals who we thought would be willing and able and comfortable helping us. And so we also want to recognize the members of the community that are here. So I just want to kind of give an introduction of how we got started with this project. The idea was conceived using our, Mr. Willits conceived this project over the course of last semester in the fall with the help of our service learning coordinator, Dr. Henderson. And the idea was that we already have a school where our students are comfortable serving in the community. So we thought when we're teaching History 1302 and Government 2306, we were trying to think of a way to bridge the curriculum into actual practice of the work of history, right? And we thought that we could maybe come up with some ideas or present the ideas to our classes so that they could think of different activities that they could do to really integrate what they're learning in the classroom with the work in the actual community. And, we have to do this in conjunction with, since this is a dual credit class, we have to do this in conjunction with the learning outcomes of Lone Star College and the state outcomes in the high school classroom. But we, we had this idea and we put it out there and we were sure that we could find authentic experiences or that our kids could find authentic experiences to ways to serve their community. So we had several different procedures in place, we thought, and the ultimate goals of the whole project were to let our students go out into the community and make contact and find people that needed our help. Needed a way for maybe some research to be done or some work to be done, and that we could then take that work that they've done and then contribute it to the city museum or some body of research somewhere, because we know that there's a lot of interest and enthusiasm in the history of the Houston area. And so we encouraged them to email strange people that they had never met before and introduce themselves and talk about themselves and talk about what their interests were. We reached out to the City of Humble museum staff, our local representatives in Austin, and the teachers and staff here. Anybody that we could think of, nobody was out of the question, right? And so we decided to just sort of open it up like that. And so what we found is that there were people in the community that were willing to facilitate this project. There were areas of our community that needed, that had specific historical needs. And once we located what those needs were, identified what those needs were, then, there were permissions to get. I mean, it's just this ongoing sort of living and breathing process. So we identified a community of interest near Humble. And that community is the Bordersville community, and it is just right across Highway 59 from where we are today. And that neighborhood is a predominantly African-American neighborhood, a historical community. And so we started meeting with some of the members of that community to find out what their specific needs were. Once we found out what their needs were, and we decided that with our classes we could meet some of those needs, one of the overwhelming projects became to involve the state and get our kids involved at the state level in order to get historic recognition and protection for the Bordersville community itself and for some of our older historic cemeteries that don't yet have historical recognition. And so some of our community partners were the Humble City Museum, of course. That's where Marty got started, asking questions and finding out who should we talk to next. Do you have a list of contacts? Then we met with the Bordersville Neighborhood Council, This is a governing body that sort of oversees the things that are happening in the Bordersville community. Very well organized. They meet once a month, and so Mr. Willits and I decided to start going to some of their meetings and introducing ourselves and letting them know who we were and what we were about and what our kids were about. The city of Humble, and that's a really important connection that we made because we found out that the city, the old part of the city of Humble actually has some historical needs, and our kids now are trained to meet some of those needs. So that's a really important thing that we did for the next semester. And of course, Lone Star College. We made two connections to universities. We have the Lone Star College has a new department of oral history. And so we reached out to the staff member, the professor who runs that that organization, that little thing, that little body. And he has actually been working in conjunction with us pretty regularly. Whenever we go to places, he's there to record and to document. He really values the work that our young people are doing because this is the work of historians. And so they're getting to see, you know, what being a historian is all about in an actual way. And then we contacted the University of Houston contacted us actually through social media because they are also interested in preserving the stories of minority communities in the Houston area. They publish a magazine every 3 months that sort of focuses on a specific area of Houston. And they're very interested in the story of Bordersville. And so they offered to transcribe all of our oral histories and preserve them online and in their Center for Public History. But mostly this is about our students, and so today I want to recognize these are just a representative of the many young people who are mostly sophomores in high school, who worked hard and became very dedicated to this project and all the different parts. And when they talk about the different parts, you'll see a lot of different parts. In fact, they're going to tell you about some of the goals, some of the things they accomplished this semester, and some of the obstacles that they faced. I'm overwhelmed. I'm sure Mr. Willits is also overwhelmed because we just sort of had this idea and we presented it to the kids and they just went a million different ways, and they're so enthusiastic and so dedicated. So our biggest obstacle was keeping up with them because they wanted to be everywhere and all the time. And there were only 2 of us this semester, and so, you know, sometimes we had to rein them in a bit. But our biggest obstacle was really just sort of trying to curb their enthusiasm a little bit because they quickly, you know, just went in all different directions. So first up this morning, we have 2 students who are going to talk to you about the work that they did in the Bordersville community. This is Iano Asumo and Phoenix Richmond.
Good morning. As Ms. Jacobs previously mentioned, my name is Phoenix Richmond. This is Iano Asumo. And today we're going to be discussing the oral histories and their historical context and preservation in Easter egg hunt and introducing Mr. A.W. Jones.
Okay, so hello, as Phoenix already said, my name is Iano Asumo, and I was one of the interviewers at the oral history interviews. And the outcome and purpose of this project overall was to get a historical marker for the vibrant and interesting community that is Bordersville. So some of our goals during the interviews was to help in any way needed and to, as I earlier said, gain historical recognition for the community. So we met with community members, we sat with the Bordersville Neighborhood Council, and we formed partnerships to help with neighborhood needs.
Also, in order for Bordersville to further reach the goal of having historical markers for the community, this year they had their first annual Easter egg hunt provided by these pictures here. So they wanted to have this Easter egg hunt in order to have a community within the community and have the young generation be able to look back on this event and pass on to further generations to show just how amazing this community can be.
And now Mr. A.W. Jones, the president of the Bordersville Neighborhood Council, will be touching upon various points that are very relevant to this project.
Thank you. Jones, and I'm the chairperson for the Watersville Neighborhood Council 3-8 Service Center in the Watersville area. And I'm here this morning to thank Mr. Marty Wilkes and Dr. Jacobs for their coming out to Watersville and taking a part and working in the Watersville area. And then after they come out, we had the children to come out and participate in doing interviews for the people of Watersville to find out some history of the Watersville area. And I was one of the ones that they interviewed. And I'm gonna tell you something. I've never seen such hard, dedicated, hard-working young men and women that you all sent out to the Watersville area. And we want to thank each and every one of them for the hard work that they did in the Watersville area. And then we had the cemetery, which we worked at 2 days. And I'm gonna tell you something. There was trees cut, there was fences cleared, and all kind of work. We had brushes piled up, I guess, maybe 20 to 30 feet in diameter and maybe 10 to 15 feet high. Mr. Alfred Stewart, sitting there next to me, he's the caretaker of the Teller Cemetery. And we had a burning date for it to be burned. But Mr. Stewart and his sons went out to take care of the cemetery, and they saw all of the brush. And before the fire department and Mr. Wilkes and Dr. Jacobs could get there, they burned all of the trash before the burning day was supposed to be. But then we had the children to come out to the Easter egg hunt. And they did all kind of good things with our children on the Easter egg hunt. And then we had on the interview, I've worked with the Aldine School District as a board member for 31 years. And I knew children. I've been around children all my life. And because I had 7 of my own. And so with the dedication of these young people, especially the ones that interviewed me, they were very dedicated people. And they asked good questions, they followed up, and you had to think hard to answer that question. They really dug deep, and they wanted to know. And so we are here this morning to thank Mr. Marty Wilkes and Dr. Jacobs and the young people that come out to the Watersville area, 3-8 Service Center, and did all of the work and we're still doing work, and we still want them to come out and help with us to do the rest of the work that we're trying to do. We're a long ways from finishing it, and we want to continue to do it. And I'd like for Mr. Stewart to stand and can you stand? Okay. That cemetery for I don't know how many years. And it's always neat. When you go out to bury, it's always neat and clean. And we want to thank him for such a great job he's doing. Thank you.
We thank Mr. A.W. Jones for his thoughts. And here we will show 2 videos of cemeteries that are trying to avoid.
Just go. Somebody needs to be back there.
The cemetery is the Aldine Cemetery, south of the Sam Houston Tollway. It's one of those old, small country cemeteries that were created when homesteaders first purchased land in that rural area. Now descendants of the original owners are wondering why their family grave sites were destroyed and what can be done.
It's really been sad for me. to see all this happen.
All the memories and everything that people had were gone. Crews essentially leveled half the property. Alfred Seeliger and his cousins walked me out to where they think their grandparents are buried.
They were right in here. These two headstones.
Where are they now, the headstones?
I have no idea. I think it's terrible. This was my grandfather, this was a sacred place to me.
He shows me an old photo of the day he helped to bury his grandfather in 1956.
I used to come down here with my dad when I was just a little kid, and when I was 15, we helped dig the grave.
Frank Price and his wife discovered the cemetery destruction when they arrived in November to check on their family's grave sites.
I looked out there and there was a guy with a backhoe and a pile of trees over here, and then right over here was his daddy with a bulldozer pushing stuff up.
Price said the workers put him on the phone with their boss, Houston resident Ibrahim Bahat.
He said, I bought it. I said, what? I said, you can't. I said, who gave you the right to come in here and tear all this down like that?
Property deeds show Forest Haven Cemetery Corporation of Houston owns the 5-acre cemetery. According to the Harris County District Attorney's Office, Forest Haven owner Corin Selchik was in discussion with Bahat about purchasing plots. Bahat and Selchik can be seen in this photo one of the family members took after discovering the destruction. Either Bahat or Selchik will discuss the issue with me. And look at this one. Wilbur. He wasn't even a year old. 4 generations of Tammy West family are buried here, beginning with her grandfather. Her family's headstone still stands, but the beauty of the place for her is gone.
See someone's family's resting place to be destroyed, desecrated, like it's done with no respect, it was devastating.
One of the problems in all this is where that dumpster took the headstones. I hope to track that down. Also, a good point is that the Harris County District Attorney is now involved and will be meeting with family members next week to look for resolution. I plan on keeping on top of this, Isaiah, to see what in the heck happened and where the tombstones are.
It's always so difficult. You have your family members and then they pass on, and this is all you have left.
Right.
So what can they do legally about this, Emily?
Well, that's where the district attorney steps in, and it is a violation of state law to have something like this happen. It's punishable by, possibly a year in a county jail. So we'll just have to keep posted on that.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Emily. Again.
Good morning, guys. My name is Ivan Khan. I am a sophomore at Western College High School, and today I will be discussing with you guys about the goals we had at Tedder Cemetery. First of all, Tedder Cemetery is a segregated cemetery, and going into the project, I had a group of 8 to 10 students, and we were willing to do any form of physical labor work at the cemetery to help out the African American community. When we first got into this project, we did not know what specific aims we wanted to get done. But however, after we talked with Mr. Brewer, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jacobs, and Mr. Williams, and even
Well, it's a perfect espresso morning here, George. Hold on a second.
As I was saying, so after we got an overview of the cemetery and talked with Mr. Stewart, Mr. Jones, we came up with a few specific goals we had. So first of all, we wanted to help the African American community, and this would be primarily done by cleaning the entire cemetery. So there's an entrance pathway that leads to the cemetery, and we wanted to clear it from any leaves and debris. And there are these fence lines guarding the site, and there were trees falling over it. There was branches all over the fence, and we wanted to clear that out. And lastly, since this is a very old cemetery, the gravestones are not level, they are dirty, and they are tipped over, so we wanted to level them out and wash them. And most importantly, we wanted to get historical recognition for this site because there have been acts of vandalism done in the past by other teenagers, and there's development going around on the fence lines, and there's a possibility that the tractors will demolish the cemetery. And now I will let my partner Anthony Nash discuss what we accomplished with our work.
Alright, so I'm Anthony Nash. I'm a junior at Quest Early College High School, and I'll be presenting the accomplishments of our work. So we did this worked for about 4 days, including over spring break, and 3 of the days we had no power tools. So it was pretty difficult, and there's a lot of digging and a lot of manual labor. One of the greatest accomplishments for me was that we maintained a safe environment. I was really glad that nobody got hurt during this whole thing and that everybody just was doing everything safely. In these pictures right here, this is actually us leveling and cleaning gravestones using historical preservation techniques. And then in the top right corner, that is the entrance to the whole cemetery, and it needed to be cleaned out in the beginning. So this is somewhat in the beginning and a little bit during of the whole project itself. And now in this one, this is us talking and involving more of the community. So one of the goals of this whole project was to involve the community in this like big, giant puzzle of things that we all wanted to accomplish and do. And we definitely did accomplish that, getting a bunch of Lone Star students involved and Quest students involved. Another objective for us was to clean out the whole cemetery. So it went from being really, really like, I would say unkept for a moment, and now it's extremely clean, super clear. The gravestones have giant noticeable differences, and they're pretty leveled, and I think it's really clean. The last part is the gravestones are now extremely clean. There's a before and after picture of most of the gravestones before we cleaned them, and now what happened after we cleaned them. So I will now give the floor to Taylor Frick and Crystal Davenport, who will be presenting over Old Humboldt.
Hello everyone, my name is Taylor Frick, and I'm going to tell you guys today about the scavenger hunt that we completed in Old Humboldt and the oral history completed at Bender High School. So I decided to do the scavenger hunt because I had a really strong desire to figure out, like, see the history of where I lived and how it evolved, because no matter what something may be right now, it came from maybe nothing or something very small. And so we started off going to the museum, and the staff helped us basically put us in the right direction of where we needed to be and what everything was. So an example is the Uncle City Cafe right across the street from the museum. I used to go there all the time with my family whenever I was younger. And the second floor was always blocked off. My mom said whenever I was 4, we went up there once. It was like an antique shop, but it's been closed off since. And I learned from the museum staff that the second floor had the posted ballroom dancing, and so I never knew that. I was just worried about when the food was going to come out. I didn't know. And so that was really neat. I would like to be able to tell my family, did you know that this happened there? Because I didn't know. And I also learned that Humboldt was a boomtown from the oil industry in the late 1800s, and then people went away because they didn't think there was a lot of oil left. Then they came back and then stabilized out to what is here today. And doing so brought a lot of awareness to me, and I wanted to be able to share that with the community, like how I went out in the newspapers and was able to teach everybody about something that they may not have known about, even though where you live. And so my dad and I used to go camping a lot. We would go through some maybe older towns on the way to the campsite, and it was kind of old, and I was like, why don't they just tear it down? And I didn't know why they would want to keep something that wasn't really new. And my dad said, well, if they want to preserve the history, and I was able to learn about why they would want to do that at a place, even if it's not really old, because there's a saying on a lot of gravestones that say gone but not forgotten, and you may feel that way now, but it's more of, I would say, kind of like a surface statement, because you may know or care about a certain place or somebody now, but generations down the road or years, people aren't going to know the significance of it. It's just going to be another small town, or it's just going to be another person. And so this scavenger hunt really fully allowed for me to appreciate history where I lived, and I want to make sure that the significance doesn't get lost or destroyed in the process from the old or the past times to the new times where we're all worried about what's happening right now. And we also did oral histories at Bender High School, and we did the histories, the interviews. We wanted to get more insight into how the generations before us may have lived, or how they, with the experiences that we were not able to go through, and we would give us more insight into what we haven't lived through. And so being able to do that with a scavenger hunt, it really opened, is a gateway into the past. It really shaped our future today. So thank you very much, and now Crystal will be.
Hi, I'm Crystal Davenport. I'm a junior at Quest. So I'm going to talk about our expansion of the project from more than just the cemeteries and going to the museum. We were able to do more for the museum. We did census work. We did pieces of writing and pieces of art for the museum. And two of those pieces of art are right here. We tried to create historically accurate, historically important pieces of work. One of them would be Bender Jr. and the oil rigs. His company made all of the wood for the oil rigs, and without them, Humble wouldn't be standing as it is today. It wouldn't be here. It would probably be under a different name. It probably would have been a clean slate. So that kind of shaped who we were as people. And then another thing was the Humble Bank. A bank moves where its people stay. So the bank had to move 3 different times. 2 times because of fires and floods, and another time because people moved. They kept moving 2 doors down. And it kind of seems pointless to move 2 doors down. But at the time, Humble was only like 2 streets. They had to move wherever the taverns were, wherever the people were. And generally that meant 2 doors down every 10 years. So it was historically accurate and important to represent that in a picture. And the Humble Bank picture is what used to be there originally and what stands there now, which is a Mason's Lodge. So when doing all of these extra things and presenting these and giving them out, we learned how to appreciate what we used to have and what we don't have now, and our histories. All of these pictures, including some that aren't here today, will be given to the Humble Museum along with some of the census staff and the oral history staff. So we're trying to build up our museum and show people that we're more than just this tiny little place. We have significant history here. So all of this is to show that we have something here that's more than just a little town. Along with it, we did the cemeteries. We had Isaac Cemetery and William Cemetery. So Isaac Cemetery was the really, really big cemetery that we worked on for a long time. It was dirty, it was underkept, it was, the gravestones were, some of them were actually on the ground, they got cracked in half. So our students went in and they fixed all of that for one cemetery. But the cemetery that they were only able to go to for 2 days was William Cemetery, which was the smaller one with significantly more damage. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do more for both the museum and the cemeteries in order to keep them up to date, to keep them healthy and alive. Kind of a weird saying for a cemetery, but to keep them preserved, because it's important history for everybody around us. Next will be Philippe and Amel about the community needs.
Morning, my name is Philippe Parker, and I'm in 10th grade. I'm in 10th grade at West. We're going to be talking about the importance of, I need to move, what am I doing? Talk about the importance of designating certain sites as historically significant and what that means legally and what it means socially as well. So in order to designate Ketter Cemetery as a historical location, I spoke to officials of the county, I spoke to officials at the state level, and also Dr. Jacobs, and I worked with them in getting the documentation, which included anything from pictures to maps to land deeds and things like that. According to Texas Historical Commission, a historic designation helps preserve cemeteries by alerting future and present landowners of the presence of an important historical resource on their property. And So with all the development going on in and around the Elmville area, it was a little concerning that our work would be almost in vain if we didn't protect the cemetery. And so my goal, and I understand Dr. Jacobs' goal, was to ensure that our work would be good. And this great work, and we want recognition for it. And not just for us, but for the cemetery itself. It's important that these developers recognize where they are and what's around the area they're building on, so they know to protect it, and not just because of kindness of their heart, because the state of Texas recognizes it as an important place that ought to be protected. So this is the importance of assuring Tedder Cemetery is kept, and we hope to file paperwork towards the middle of this month and have the application in and all that very shortly. Thanks, guys.
Hi, my name is Janelle, and I'm a junior at Quest. And I'm going to talk about continuing the community needs at Porterfield and building partnerships with them. And so, the main objective of the community service project was basically to combine history and help with both the community. And I think that history is an extremely aspect of human culture, and that defines culture and shows the progression of society has made. So I think that was really kind of the main thing with this project. And so I learned a lot about Portersville, because I didn't even know that Portersville really existed before the project. And so one thing that I was a part of was the oral history. Both of the oral history, the one at Bender High School and one at 3H Community Center. And I got to interview a lady named Murray, and I also was able to interview Mr. Stewart here. And I kind of learned a lot about the community, and I was able to get like a gist of what was happening in the community. And they still have a very long list of things that are going on in the community that need to be fixed. Even though Pleasant did help a lot with it, but they still have a lot of things that need to be fixed. So that's why we want to be able to build a good partnership with them and continue the project. And like next year, they're going to continue the project and branch off and do a lot more with it. So, is it going, Mr. Willett?
I was waiting for her to click her slide.
This is a cemetery. Yes, so this is to know about the destruction of the cemetery in the Houston area.
So, as we've been working on this project and building our partnerships with the community, people have started reaching out to us and sharing with us whenever a cemetery is in the news or the destruction of the cemetery makes the news. And so just this past week, you probably heard about a cemetery, again, in the African-American community. It's called Barrett Station, and it's right outside of Crosby, Texas. And the community was actually formed by freed slaves who left Houston after emancipation. And this is their historic cemetery, and it has no protection whatsoever, no fence of any kind. And a young man just simply lost control of his vehicle and drove through the middle of the cemetery and destroyed several of the graves. And I think this story is important for us to see and for our kids to learn about, because it really highlights the importance of preserving these historic sites. And so I thought I would just share one of the several news outlets in Houston covered the story, but this is one, and hopefully it'll play.
The volunteers are trying to figure out how much damage was done after someone drove a truck through a historic African-American cemetery. This was northeast of Houston. This all happened over the weekend at the Barrett Station Evergreen Cemetery. A number of headstones were damaged and graves were compromised. We spoke with a woman whose brother is buried there.
He hit my brother's grave. There was a cement platform over it. It's cracked and damages, and it's all over, like he busted his all pad. He knocked the headstone off the platform it was sitting in about 3 feet away next to the fence, and the fence was torn up like the truck might have went through it.
Now, the sheriff's department tells us the driver told them that he was going too fast and lost control. He was cited for not having a driver's license and failure to drive in a single lane.
All right. Good morning. Thanks for coming here again too as well. I wanted to first make sure that you remember the goals, because our students have explained quite a lot of their activity. Here are some of the goals. Number one, to integrate service learning into history and government courses to strengthen students' ties with the local community and to provide real-world application of historical research. I'd say, well done. You took care of that. Engage students in real-world activities to connect curriculum and state-mandated, the SLOs, to include, of course, obviously Humble ISD, the state of Texas, and Lone Star too as well. You took care of that. To consult with community members, museum staff, local and state leaders, and instructors at LSC and Quest. You did that too as well. And this one needed to be included. It wasn't on the slide. Finally, the grade and the passing course as Quest students. That was their objective, so they often remind us of that. Students were in charge of their journey, free to consult with the community as they completed their project proposals. Did they meet their goals? I believe so. But let's first hear from a small portion, over 140 students who participated. Quotes. This was more work than a standard research paper, but I enjoyed it. I have lived in Humble my entire life and thought I knew it was the back of my hand, but through this project I realized I had no idea what had occurred here. I had the honor of interviewing the previous mayor of Humble, Dennis or Donnie McManus. Life back then was before telephone, radio, telegraph, or anything really. These are fun to read. Portersville is a community that I just learned about this semester, although I have lived in Humble for a full 4 years. And I've, of course, now lived in Houston for my whole life. There's probably a 15-year-old who wrote that, but that's her full life. He said, this is full of rich history. She said, that was actually the highlight of the scavenger hunt for me because those two men were quite funny and informative. Older people are really full of knowledge. I gained a vast amount of knowledge that I would not have required if I were not placed in an environment that required me to appreciate the origins of my community, the historical indebtedness of Humble that was exemplified by the majority of current Old Humble residents, fortified my appreciation of this area. Guess which junior wrote that? I approached strangers to merely ask them to direct us to the destinations. They were fascinated by the fact that the youth were actually engaged in the upbringing of Humble, a community that obviously valued its history. Now, this also showed me how much work could be done by many people, a community banding together to tackle a problem head-on to fix the situation. Along with the help of several other students, we were able to level the gravestone of a woman named Mary Taylor. She died at the age of 80 in 1936. And we were able to get a peek into the life of her with the help of Mr. A.W. Jones. As he was still young when they had died, he told us, of course, in several stories. My favorite part of participating in the project was the ability to connect with someone who could connect decades of change and provide clarification on situations that were faced during their youth. I also left encouraged to do something about the historical preservation of Humble. Of course, that's an often repeated thing. Before this assignment, I did not understand the relevance of Humble in Texas history. She, a waitress at Humble City Cafe, was an amazing help and provided us the locations of answers we found to the scavenger hunt and answered all the remaining questions we had about the history of Humble. Right? A person at the local cafe knew quite a lot. And we have a quote from a student. Michael Crichton, a best-selling author, once said, if you don't know history, then you don't know anything. You're a leaf that doesn't know it's part of a tree. End quote. As time goes on, younger generations tend to either disregard or forget history, whether it is about the family, country, race, etc. Exploring the history of Old Humble was like having a history class in the real world. It engaged me in the investigation of buildings and researching the town's history. The history of Humble has shaped the town as the residents reuse old historical buildings instead of tearing them down. This original history is important to preserve as old building and artifacts are the only link we have still to a previous generation. I would usually never go out and do something like this, but this project definitely persuaded me to care about my community. I personally think it's a good idea that this project pushed me out of my comfort zone. This project gave me more freedom and choice, which is very new to me. It is important to preserve the history of the community, but that we care for it. And I was able to tell from the museum staff that they, of course, appreciated the history too as well. Cleaning graves taught me to appreciate not only hard labor, but it also made me more aware of the history of Humble. Before this project, I had no idea we even had a cemetery in Humble. And lastly, I also enjoyed imagining them on their way to school on foot or sometimes when they had the opportunity on a horse. I find that significant to me because I am all about preservation, and I wish that we could still ride horses to school. The future goals, of course, and you've heard many of them, is to ensure that we continue on with our community partners. We provide project continuity to the next group, to Lone Star and to Quest. The students will be out doing more soliciting on their own for different ideas and opportunities in the area. That we will work to preserve, restore, and finish up the historical status for the local area cemeteries. We'll work with Lone Star and U of H for the oral history gathering as it will continue. We'll coordinate obviously with the Gordonsville Community Association as they work on their projects. We will incorporate our students as they choose. And here's something new. Quest Social Faith Department will offer this project to other subject areas for cross-curricular integration. Finally, our dual credit history and government students will continue to be genuine service learning enterprise, one in which they make connections between activities with various communities while accomplishing academic work in the classroom. And I would like to, of course, put out this special thank you. Keep in mind the 140 students, most of who did a scavenger hunt. Special thank you, of course, goes to the Humboldt Museum staff for their patience, support from our first meeting in December, their hands-on guidance, direction, and support of our students that led them to discover the richness of the Humboldt history. Thank you.
We'd like to, we still have some time and we have some refreshments, but we would like to know if you guys have any questions for us or for our students, or any comments, or perhaps you have a project that you've sort of been thinking someone should do something about, and you know, we could add you to our growing list of partners and ideas that we have in the future. The city of Humboldt, for example, reached out to us and said, when we were at Charles Bender High School, it said, since your students have been trained to historically preserve tombstones, that's a pretty important skill that we need, perhaps they'd be interested in doing some work on behalf of the city of Humboldt. And so, you know, these ideas just sort of come to us, like I said. And so I thought maybe we would give you guys a few minutes to ask questions or make comments or give us some ideas. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm a genealogist. I have grown cemeteries all over the state. It's very interesting to me. And one of the things that's really needed in cemeteries for historical preservation is recording where the graves are and who's buried there, because oftentimes people couldn't afford to, to mark graves. So was that a part of your project, and is that something that you guys could incorporate in the future?
It is on our list of things to do. We have reached out to the Texas Historical Commission, who's given us some ideas for next steps. So we have, the cemeteries have all received already historic designation, and Philippe and Yanu are working on getting historical markers. The next project will be to contact a surveying company that can do ground penetrating radar. And then grid the cemetery, particularly Tedder Cemetery. And so, like, for example, we have a business partner who's been willing to donate some material for a fence. So we're going to survey the land, possibly over the summer. Grace Church is one of our community partners. They've been working with the older cemetery, the Pipe Yard Cemetery. And so they have a survey company that has ground penetrating radar. So it's just been a matter of time, one thing at a time. To grid the cemetery. Mr. Stewart is the caretaker at Tedder Cemetery, and so he has knowledge of everybody that he's buried out there for several decades. And then we have some other resources that have lists of people. So the plan is, once we get the property surveyed, is to grid the cemetery, use the ground penetrating radar to mark graves that maybe aren't marked right now, because we know, for example, Mr. Jones has some family, their markers have been removed. He knows where they are and who's buried where. And so it's really important for us to use the elders in the community to give us the information that would otherwise be lost. But Mr. Willis is also a genealogist, amateur genealogist.
He does have to find a great project.
Yeah, and so we've been, sort of building. We just started this project in January, right? I mean, Marty sort of conceived of it and was like, "What do you think of it?" Okay, it was conceived, and then Marty told me about it here, and so we've just been working since January, and so that is definitely our next step, is to get the land surveyed and the ground penetrating radar, grid the cemetery.
One of my goals is to do exactly what you talked about, is to show after the work is done, a lot of it is to introduce through genealogy sources, obviously, the cemeteries and make sure it's connected to many genealogy websites and kind of like go, the cemetery is here and here's your loved ones and come look. And the kids thought that was kind of weird at first, gave me a strange look. Like, we're going to introduce the people who are buried there to the descendants. What? How are you going to do that? So they discovered it, because many times they discover there's a message on a stone, sometimes beautifully written, of course, and sometimes it's short, succinct. So to reintroduce them through genealogy, I love genealogy too.
Also in the Williams Cemetery, which is a family cemetery that's just right behind the bus barn. I mean, it's literally walking distance from our school. One of the students has already started, there's two living descendants of that family, one in Kingwood and one in Corpus Christi. I believe it's in Corpus Christi. I don't know if any of the Williams kids are here. And so we reached out to him, and he sent us a biography of his family and who's buried and who they were married to and who their kids were and all of this. So they found that fascinating. That was, like in his aunt's attic or something. And he's like, nobody's been interested in the cemetery for so long. Here's this information, pictures. And so, there's so much to do. It can be overwhelming. So we've just been trying to break it down into like one step at a time.
I have a question. I actually spent the last decade working for the corporate side of funeral and cemetery business. So my question to you would be, if these cemetery locations become historical sites, is that like the equivalent at some of these corporate locations to an ECF or endowment care fund or some sort of eternal care that would be paid?
Well, we've actually, I reached out to Representative Huberty's office, and his chief of staff, who couldn't be here today because they're in session in Austin, has suggested that perhaps Harris County look at taking over the care of the cemetery, because as Mr. Jones said, Mr. Stewart is the primary caretaker of the cemetery. And so if we could get Harris County to become involved in mowing and cutting down the tree. One day we went out to work on a Saturday morning, there were 4 trees that had fallen the night before. And so, if we could get more people involved and certainly the county involved to maintain the cemetery. Right? Yeah, so that's definitely another step in the process.
A question for some of the students. Has doing this project made any of you want to pursue history or museum studies or something in social sciences when you go on to college, university? I say that as a important.
I'll just wait for anyone else to say anything, but once, because I participated in the oral histories and working one day at Cedar Cemetery, and it made me more aware of my surroundings and wanted me to study this more, not like as a future career, but like as a hobby or something I can do when I have nothing else to do. It's been really interesting. I got to learn about totally different communities than what I'm used to, about people from past generations who lived through totally different experiences than I have. So I definitely study this for you. So.
It was really interesting. It actually helped me find one of my desired job positions. I worked as a safety manager when I was out there, and one of my jobs was to reassign people to do a different task and make sure that everything was going pretty smoothly. And it really helped me figure out, like, man, I actually do like doing this for some reason. I'm probably weird for that, but it's like, I like to just kind of like help people and make everything flow pretty well. So I did realize that I do want to become a manager of some sort.
For the students, what were some of the challenges y'all face and how did you deal with those challenges?
Well, I had to speak to quite a few people in the county and the state, and I think reaching out to them was a little daunting. Like, I was worried, would I get a reply? Would they have what I was looking for? Is my question silly? Like, will they dismiss me as whatever, or will they take me seriously? And for the most part, they take me very seriously. I think that was fun to reach out to them and have a conversation.
I think another one of the hardest pieces was putting together the history. The history of Humble was kind of like a piece of shattered glass. You were missing pieces and it wouldn't all fit together perfectly. So you had to to go to all of these different people and be like, what does this mean? Where
Yeah.
does this go? And eventually, with the whole classes, both classes helped, you were able to put bits and pieces together over 4 months of time. So getting all of the history and writing it down and keeping it in paper and online was a lot of work, getting all of the history put together.
Yeah.
I think that personally my greatest obstacle was, I think nervousness. I was rather nervous